welcome to Tales of Honor Podcast, a podcast dedicated to telling the true stories of the Congressional Medal of Honor. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Tales of Honor Podcast. I'm your host, Christoph Ambrose. Today's episode is episode 96. 96, and it's being brought to you by the good friends over at Combat Flip-Flops. You've heard me say it before, and if you haven't, well, you're going to hear me say it now. Who is Combat Flip-Flops? Well, it's a silly question. They're a veteran-owned apparel company. They have a mission. It's a good mission. Their mission is to create peaceful and forward-thinking opportunities for self-determined entrepreneurs affected by conflict. Simply, this means helping educate Afghan women and girls. It means helping remove unexploded landmines and other ordnance in Laos, and it also means helping support the family members and the members of Special Operations Community. It's simple. Go ahead and head on over to combatflipflops.com. Get yourself a nice, comfortable pair of flop raiders to show off those toes of yours, because I know everyone loves to see toes. And while you're at it, you'll be supporting a good cause, because Combat Flip-Flops is flipping the view on how wars are won. Business, not bullets. And now, a tale of honor. Tibor Rubin, also known as Ted, was born on the 18th of June, 1929, in Pastu, Hungary, and was one of 6 children in a town with 120 Jewish families. His father and stepmother tried to send him to neutral Switzerland when he was 13 years old for safety during the war, but he was caught and sent to Mauthausen concentration camp in Austria. While Ted's parents and 2 sisters died in the Holocaust, he was liberated 14 months later by American troops, and 5 years later, he would immigrate to the United States. Ted entered the U.S. through Ellis Island on a ship named the Marine Flasher in 1948, and he settled in New York as a shoemaker. He would then go on to apprentice as a butcher, and in 1949, Ted tried to enlist in the U.S. Army. He failed the English language test, but he tried again in 1950 and passed, with some additional help from 2 fellow test takers. Ted would soon be in South Korea with I Company, 8th Cavalry Regiment, 1st Cavalry Division, where he found himself being volunteered for dangerous missions and patrols. One such mission included defending a hill for 24 hours against waves of North Korean troops. By himself. Ted was recommended for the Medal of Honor 4 times for this particular mission by 2 of his officers, and these officers also ordered Ted's sergeant to begin the paperwork. His sergeant was believed to be anti-Semitic, and the sole reason for Ted being volunteered for these missions. Both officers were killed shortly after the orders, and the paperwork never got filled out. Almost a dozen long and notarized affidavits were filled out by men that were both present for the orders and the missions in support of Ted. These would come in handy some 50 years later. In October of 1950, large amounts of Chinese troops had crossed the border into North Korea, and many of the American troops were unprepared and trapped. Most of Ted's regiment had been captured or killed, and he himself was severely wounded. He was eventually captured and found himself yet again inside another camp. He would spend the next 30 months inside this prisoner of war camp, and it was his actions while captive that would earn him the Medal of Honor. The citation reads, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty, Corporal Tibor Rubin distinguished himself by extraordinary heroism during the period from July 23, 1950 to April 20, 1953, while serving as a rifleman with Company I, 8th Cavalry Regiment, 1st Cavalry Division in the Republic of Korea. While his unit was retreating to the Pusan perimeter, Corporal Rubin was assigned to stay behind to keep open the vital Daegu-Pusan road link used by his withdrawing unit. During the ensuing battle, overwhelming numbers of North Korean troops assaulted a hill defended solely by Corporal Rubin. He inflicted a staggering number of casualties on the attacking force during his personal 24-hour battle, single-handedly slowing the enemy advance and allowing the 8th Cavalry Regiment to complete its withdrawal successfully. Following the breakout from the Pusan perimeter, the 8th Cavalry Regiment proceeded northward and advanced into North Korea. During the advance, he helped capture several hundred North Korean soldiers. On October 30, 1950, Chinese forces attacked his unit at Unsan, North Korea, during a massive nighttime assault. That night and throughout the next day, he manned a .30 caliber machine gun at the south end of the unit's line after 3 previous gunners became casualties. He continued to man this machine gun until his ammunition was exhausted. His determined stand slowed the pace of the enemy advance in his sector, permitting the remnants of his unit to retreat southward. As the battle raged, Corporal Rubin was severely wounded and captured by the Chinese. Choosing to remain in the prison camp despite offers from the Chinese to return him to his native Hungary, Corporal Rubin disregarded his own personal safety and immediately began sneaking out of the camp at night in search of food for his comrades. Breaking into enemy food storehouses and gardens, he risked certain torture or death if caught. Corporal Rubin provided not only food to the starving soldiers, but also desperately needed medical care and moral support for the sick and wounded of the POW camp. His brave, selfless efforts were directly attributed to saving the lives of as many as 40 of his fellow prisoners. Corporal Rubin's gallant actions in close contact with the enemy and unyielding courage and bravery while a prisoner of war are in the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself and the United States Army. After the war, Ted resided in California and would go on to volunteer at the Long Beach Veterans Hospital. He volunteered so much that he received an award for more than 20,000 hours of volunteer work, and the VA Long Beach Medical Center was later renamed to the Tibor Rubin VA Medical Center. In 1993, the U.S. Army commissioned a study to investigate racial discrimination in regards to the awards process. Less than 10 years later, Congress directed the military to review even more cases, and this revealed that Ted had indeed been a victim of discrimination. In a ceremony at the White House on the 23rd of September, 2005, President Bush presented the Medal of Honor to Ted, with his wife and 2 children present. Tibor Rubin died on the 5th of December, 2015, at the age of 86, and is buried in the Mount Sinai Memorial Park in Los Angeles, California. And that was a Tale of Honor. Thank you so much for listening to Tales of Honor podcast. And if you like this podcast, please be sure to leave a nice review, a good rating, and tell a friend. You can see more information on Facebook, Instagram, and at talesofhonorpodcast.com. Hey, you can now listen on Twitter. I know, seems weird, but for those who are constantly engulfed on Twitter, don't forget to follow Tales of Honor _PC, and every time a episode publishes, it will also push to Twitter. Simple as that. If you have any questions or comments, you can send them to talesofhonorpodcast@gmail.com. And until next time, I'm Christoph Ambrose. Thanks for listening.